I grew up in foster care. 26 years later, I found out why. People assume that if you grew up without parents, you'd go looking for them. That you'd dig through adoption records or spend nights scrolling through genealogy sites. But I never did. Not once. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd find, or worse, afraid I'd find nothing at all. I was raised in a group home just outside of Pittsburgh. St. Mark's Home for Boys. It wasn't hell, but it wasn't love either. You got food, a bed, and enough space to keep your anger to yourself. I never got adopted. I aged out at 18, took the money they gave me, and bounced. Never looked back. I'm 25 now. I work maintenance at a university downtown, fix elevators and unclog toilets. Nobody there knows my story, and I prefer it that way. People feel sorry for orphans. Or they project weird fantasies on you. I'm not a lost puppy. I just grew up without anyone. 2 weeks ago, I got a letter. It was left at the front desk of my building with no postage, no return address. Just my name, Alex Thomas, written in plain handwriting on the front. I thought maybe it was from someone at work, or a mistake. But inside was a short note: I know who you are. Your real name isn't Alex. Ask about the Belridge Clinic. M. That's it. No explanation. Just that one line and the name of a clinic I'd never heard of. I laughed, tossed it on the kitchen counter, and forgot about it. Until it started messing with my sleep. Who the hell was M? How did they know my name? And what was the Belridge Clinic? The more I tried to brush it off, the more it got under my skin. I couldn't stop thinking about it. At 3 a.m. I found myself at my desk, typing Belridge Clinic Pittsburgh into Google. It was real. Closed in 2003. A private psychiatric and women's health center. Women's health. That made me pause. Could it be? No. Probably a prank. Still, I couldn't help myself. I called in sick and drove out there the next morning. The building was boarded up, abandoned. Most of the windows were cracked or gone entirely. Weeds grew up through the pavement in the lot. But the main doors weren't locked. The chains had been cut recently. Inside, it smelled like rotten mold. Old medical files were scattered everywhere, the kind of thing that should have been shredded years ago. I walked through the empty halls, feeling like an idiot. And then I found it. An old patient archive cabinet, rusted and dented, but still intact. I opened it without knowing what I was even looking for. Inside were file folders, labeled by year. And in the 1999 section, I found a name that stopped me cold: Eleanor Thomas. Thomas. My last name. That couldn't be a coincidence. I pulled the file. My hands were shaking. Inside, ultrasound records. Birth plan paperwork. Emergency contact forms. And one note that said, child transferred immediately after birth. Mother not notified of child's removal. I backed away from the cabinet. That's when it hit me. Someone didn't give me up. Someone took me. I sat in my car for over an hour outside that rotting building. The file folder rested in the passenger seat like it might explode. I didn't want to open it again. But I also couldn't put it down. I kept hearing that line in my head: mother not notified of child's removal. What the hell did that even mean? I drove home, locked the door behind me, and dumped the contents of the file onto my kitchen table. Ultrasound images dated October 1999. Admission forms listing Eleanor Thomas, age 24, single. Then another set of notes, this one from someone labeled only as hospital liaison, with the words, infant transferred to temporary protective custody pending evaluation. No mention of why. No social worker name. No reason listed for the separation. Just bureaucratic silence. I don't know why, but I Googled her. Eleanor Thomas, Pittsburgh. Tons of results. A few obituaries. Some school teachers. A yoga instructor in Scranton. None of them fit. I tried narrowing it down with the age, she'd be in her late 40s now, and profession. Then something odd popped up. An article from 2013 about a nurse named Eleanor J. Thomas, who sued a private hospital for wrongful termination. The article mentioned she once worked at Belridge. My pulse kicked. I clicked the link. It wasn't much, but it had a photo. The grainy headshot didn't scream anything to me, but there was something about the eyes. Wide, alert. I walked over to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror, holding the screen next to my face. It wasn't like looking at a twin. But it wasn't nothing either. Still, this was thin. A name match and a maybe photo. I needed more. That night, I sat on the floor with all the papers spread around me, looking for anything I might have missed. That's when I noticed the smallest detail. On the back of one of the ultrasound printouts, someone had scribbled a note in pen. Barely legible, almost like it wasn't meant to be seen. Patient growing suspicious. No father listed. Request transfer be expedited. It was initialed. LL. I checked the rest of the forms. LL kept popping up. Charts, comments, approvals. Whoever they weren't just observing, they were managing Eleanor's case. And then I remembered something else from the letter. Your name isn't Alex. If that was true, then the state gave me a name I wasn't born with. Which meant my entire identity, birth certificate, social security, foster records, was based on a lie. I'd always assumed I'd been given up by someone who didn't want me. But now, it felt more like I'd been taken off the board. Around 2 a.m., I called in a favor. My old roommate Leo, ex-con, tech nerd, paranoid genius. He owed me one after I paid his bail 3 years back. If anyone could dig up something buried deep, it was him. I need to know if this woman ever had a kid. Eleanor Thomas. Born 75. Worked in nursing. Pittsburgh area. And look into anything about a doctor or administrator with initials LL connected to Belridge. Leo didn't ask why. Give me a day, he said. Maybe 2. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Because in the back of my mind, something was clicking into place. Someone didn't just take me. Someone orchestrated it. Leo called me just after 11 the next morning. I was in the middle of fixing a busted heating vent in one of the student dorms when his name flashed on my screen. I dropped everything. Dude, he said, no greeting. You were definitely born into something sketchy. My stomach tightened. Go on. He let out a breath like he didn't know where to start. That woman, Eleanor Thomas. She filed a missing persons report in 2000. For a baby boy. Said the hospital told her he was stillborn but never provided a death certificate. Guess what hospital? Belridge. Bingo. I stopped pacing. The hallway felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in. I didn't say anything, so he kept going. The file's sealed, but I found a court log from the same year. She tried to sue the clinic but dropped the case a few months later. No public reason why. Because they threatened her, I said, more to myself than to him. I wouldn't be surprised. And that LL name. Dr. Lawrence Langston. Chief of Operations at Belridge from 96 to 02. Real piece of work. Quietly resigned after the clinic closed. No charges, but some whispers about shady patient transfers and falsified discharge papers. Jesus Christ. All this for what? I asked, gripping the phone. Why lie? Why steal a kid and fake the records? I don't know, man. But people like that. They don't bury the truth unless it benefits someone. I hung up and stood there, staring at a flickering light bulb. That night, I looked up Eleanor again. Found a newer article, smaller publication, but it said she'd opened a free clinic in Homestead 5 years ago. Still local. Still practicing. It listed an office phone number and an email. I stared at that number for an hour. My hand trembled over the call button. But I couldn't do it, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. To possibly hear her say, I don't know you. Instead, I drove there. It was a small place tucked between a barbershop and a laundromat. The kind of clinic people go to when they have nowhere else to turn. I parked across the street and just watched. My pulse felt like it was in my throat. At around 5:15, I saw her. She stepped out to lock up, dark hair streaked with gray, a soft face that had clearly weathered too many storms. She looked normal. Kind, even. For a second, I wanted to run up to her. Ask everything. But something held me back. Because what if I was wrong? What if I was just some desperate orphan projecting need onto a stranger? And then, as she turned to walk away, I saw it. A pendant. A small silver locket around her neck. As it caught the light, I could just make out the engraving, "To my little star, A.T. Alex Thomas." That wasn't a coincidence. She named me. She carried me. She still wore a necklace for the child she thought had died. And she didn't even know I was alive. I didn't sleep that night. My brain spun like a carousel stuck at full speed. I had a mother. Not a myth, not a tragic footnote, an actual, living woman who still mourned me without knowing the truth. I lay in bed with my phone on my chest, the clinic number already dialed, thumb hovering. I imagined calling. I imagined her voice. Would it crack? Would she hang up? What if she didn't believe me? What if she did? But I didn't press the button. Instead, I drove back to the clinic the next day and waited. She came out just after noon to drop something at the mailbox. Her pace was soft, unhurried. I stood across the street, heart in my throat, hands sweaty in my jacket pockets. Then, I did the dumbest thing imaginable. I followed her. She walked 3 blocks to a corner diner, the kind with chipped mugs and sun-faded menus. I sat at the counter while she took a booth, ordered coffee, and pulled out a book. I could have just walked up. Said, "I think I'm your son." But I didn't. Instead, I stared at the book in her hands. Little Star, by Karen Bell. The same book my foster mom used to read to me when I was 5. The one about a boy who falls from the sky and finds his way back home. Coincidence? Maybe. But it didn't feel like one. I left before she saw me. The closer I got, the more afraid I became. What if opening this door ruined everything? What if she'd finally made peace with her grief? And here I was, ripping it open again. That night, Leo texted me again. Found something worse. Langston wasn't just covering shit up. He ran a side program. Off-books adoptions to high-paying families. Think private trafficking, but with enough red tape to stay legalish. He made people disappear. I stared at the screen, hands cold. You were probably sold, bro. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The next morning, I wrote a letter. I poured every piece of the story into it. The file. The initials. The locket. The book. The name. And I ended it with this: "If I'm wrong, I'm sorry for disturbing your peace. But if I'm right, then I've been waiting 25 years to find my way back to you." I signed it only with A. No address. No email. Just a number. Then I stood outside the clinic again, heart pounding, letter sealed and shaking in my hand. I walked in. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" I nodded. "This is for Eleanor." She gave me a weird look but took the envelope. And I walked out, not looking back. For the next 3 days, I jumped every time my phone buzzed. Every unknown number, every voicemail notification, I was certain it'd be her. But it wasn't. Not until the 5th day. The 5th day started like any other: cold coffee, no appetite, checking my phone every 10 minutes like an addict. I told myself if I didn't hear anything by noon, I'd let it go. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe I'd done enough. At 11:37 a.m., my phone rang. No caller ID. My breath stopped. I picked up, my voice barely a whisper. "Hello." There was silence. Then a soft intake of breath. "Alex." It wasn't just a name. It was a question soaked in disbelief and years of pain. I froze. "This is Eleanor," I managed to say. "I got your letter," she said, and I could hear her trying not to cry. I've read it a dozen times. I don't know how to begin. Neither did I. We talked for 2 hours. She didn't interrupt. She didn't deny. She just listened as I told her everything I'd found, every gap in the records, every breadcrumb that led to her. She filled in the rest. The hospital told her I was stillborn. She hadn't been allowed to see me. Complications, they said. Too risky. She was 22 and alone. She fought. Filed complaints. Even tried to sue. But nobody believed a scared, grieving girl accusing a well-respected clinic of lying. They called me unstable, she said. Said I was grasping at hope. Eventually I stopped fighting. But I never stopped mourning. Neither of us could say the word mother yet. It felt too fragile, like using it too soon might break the moment. She asked to meet. I said yes. We met at a park near the river the next afternoon. It was quiet. Just us, a few joggers, and the sound of water lapping against the rocks. When I saw her, I knew. Same eyes. Same nose. Same nervous habit of tugging at the sleeve cuff with her thumb. She walked toward me with cautious steps, like I might vanish. I didn't. She reached out and touched my face like she had to make sure I was real. You look like your grandfather, she said, tears spilling over. I tried to speak, but all I could manage was a nod. Then we hugged, and I swear, it felt like a missing part of me clicked back into place. But as beautiful as it was, there was still one shadow I couldn't ignore. Langston. How many other kids? I asked her, later. She shook her head. No idea. He had a network. Lawyers, clerks, people who knew how to bury things. I only uncovered fragments. When I got too close, things started happening, my lease revoked, my clinic's funding threatened, even strange men showing up to inspect my home. I got scared. She lowered her voice. And then I started getting letters. What kind? Threats. Saying I should stop asking questions, or I'd lose more than a baby. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not just because of what Eleanor told me, but because something she said kept bouncing around in my head like a marble in a jar. Letters. She said she received letters, plural, not just threats, but notes that hinted at more. People watching her. Watching me. I needed answers. Leo, my hacker friend, had been digging in silence for days. That night, I texted him. Can you trace anything tied to Dr. Langston that might have been suppressed? Legal filings, sealed documents, aliases, shell charities, anything. He replied within minutes. You're not gonna like this. But yeah, I've got something. A judge's daughter went missing in '99. Never solved. The same judge later dismissed 4 malpractice suits against Langston's clinic. I sat straight up in bed, heart pounding. This was bigger than I thought. When I met Eleanor again, I told her. Her face drained of color. Jesus, she whispered. I always thought it was some backroom black market crap. But this, yeah, I said. This is F******ing organized. It was the first time I swore in front of her. She didn't flinch. In fact, she nodded. Then we burn it down. We agreed to meet Leo. He showed up with a hard drive full of files and receipts. Discrete payments made to families right after unexplained child deaths. Donations to Langston's charity from those same families. Anonymous real estate transactions that always seemed to circle back to his shell company, Janiris Holdings. What's the play here? Leo asked. Expose it, I said. We go to the press. Or the police. Leo shook his head. Too risky. He's got people everywhere. You don't walk into a burning house and expect to come out clean. Eleanor looked at me, then at Leo. Then we don't walk in. We pull the damn foundation out from under him. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every kid he'd buried in lies. Every mother left holding an empty cradle. Every father told their child had complications while someone else paid to raise them. I never wanted to be part of a crusade. I just wanted to know who I was. But now I had to be. We worked quietly. We planned. Leo drafted a data leak package. We anonymized the sources, backed up the info in 4 different locations, scheduled timed releases. Meanwhile, I wrote my story. Not for clout. Not for revenge. But so the next person like me wouldn't have to grow up thinking they were nobody. I included everything. My name. My adoption papers. The redacted records. The fucking locket. And then I did the scariest thing of all, I put my photo at the top. 3 days later, the door to my apartment was already half-hinged when I came home. No forced entry. No broken glass. Just, off. Slightly ajar, like whoever had been inside wanted me to notice. I stepped in, heart jackhammering. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was moved. Except one thing. My laptop, the one with Leo's files, was sitting open on my desk. I never leave it open. And the screen was black, waiting for me to touch it. I reached out slowly and tapped the spacebar. It lit up with one message. You should have stayed lost. No signature. No cursor. Just those 5 words. I shut the lid and called Leo immediately. We've been made. He cursed, told me to get out, fast. Go dark. No calls. No texts. Leave everything. Eleanor had already left town 2 days earlier after someone followed her back from the grocery store. We thought we were ahead. Turns out, they were just waiting. I took a burner and drove. Not to Leo's. Not to a friend's. To the one place I never thought I'd return to, the foster home I grew up in. The building was still there, now half turned into office space. But the back lot was empty and quiet. I parked and just sat. I felt hollow. Not scared, not even angry anymore. Just tired. Of being a secret. Of running. Of having to fight for a truth I never asked to be hidden. Then, out of nowhere, headlights pulled into the lot. I ducked down. The car stopped 5 feet behind mine. Black SUV. Tinted windows. The passenger door opened, and a man stepped out. Mid-40s, sharp suit, confident. Too confident. He didn't look around. He looked directly at my windshield. Mr. Reed, he called out. We just want to talk. No one had called me Reed since I was 17. And never Mr. I didn't respond. He stepped closer. You've been digging into things you don't understand. And worse, sharing them. Still, I stayed silent. Then he said something that turned my blood to ice. You're not the only one Langston kept records on. My head shot up. He smiled. That got your attention. I rolled down the window just enough to speak. What do you want? To make a deal. He tossed a manila envelope on the hood of my car. Inside is everything about your birth. The real birth. Names. Footage. DNA. My hand twitched. And in return, I asked. He shrugged. You stop. You bury the files. You live the life you've got, which, let's be honest, is a damn miracle considering how many others didn't make it out. I stared at the envelope. This was the thing I'd spent my life chasing. Proof. Not stories. Not suggestions. Truth. But it came wrapped in blackmail. I didn't move. He said, you've got 24 hours. After that, the offer burns. Then he turned and walked back to the car. I sat in the dark, heart torn between the answers I wanted and the silence they demanded. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the envelope on the dashboard as I drove out to the lake where my foster brother and I used to skip rocks after dinner. It was always quiet there, nothing but the sound of water and wind brushing through trees. I needed that kind of stillness. But the chaos in my chest didn't quiet. That envelope was like a loaded gun. Not in a violent way, but in the sense that it could change everything if I pulled the trigger. I stared at it for hours. My birth certificate was inside. So was a photo of my mother, my real mother. She looked younger than I expected, but there was no doubt in my mind. Her face was my face, just softened and gentler. She was holding a newborn in a hospital bed. The baby was me. There were names, dates, signatures, DNA logs, a list of every doctor involved, and a court record. One that had been sealed by a judge, then mysteriously wiped from every digital system a year later. I had the truth in my hands. And I couldn't keep it quiet. So I did what scared me most. I published it. Everything. Leo helped me upload it to 5 separate drop sites. I made a video, not a sob story, not a takedown. Just facts. Just my voice. I didn't accuse. I explained. I told the world that systems fail when no one questions them. That people like Langston don't survive by being monsters, they survive by making themselves look normal. By the end of the week, the story hit national news. Langston's name was back in headlines. Anonymous victims began emailing me. People who recognized the hospital. Former nurses who remembered being told to forget certain babies. Grieving mothers. Adopted adults. Each one echoed the same feeling, I thought it was just me. That broke me more than anything else. Langston issued a denial. Of course he did. Claimed the documents were fabricated. Called it a smear campaign from a troubled individual. But he underestimated the internet. Within days, more records surfaced, and this time, they weren't from me. His empire began to crumble. And as it did, I got another letter in the mail. No return address. Just a slip of paper with 4 words in scratchy, hurried handwriting, she's still alive. Careful. No signature. No context. Just enough to start the fire all over again. I looked at that line for a long time. My mother. Still out there. After everything, the story wasn't done. But this time, I wasn't chasing it to fill a hole. I wasn't the lost kid anymore. I had a name now. And I made sure the world heard it.